Hi, my name is Chris McAllister. Welcome to the SightShift podcast. If you've ever found yourself in that tense place of leadership where big goals collide with deep conviction, there's an old word for that. It's called wilderness. And when you're in the wilderness, in the uncertainty, you're in a beautiful place because that's where you can find ancient wisdom. For ambitious, faith-driven leaders, I want you to know there's a way forward and you're not a bad leader to be where you are. We're going to help you in this podcast take all of those moments and use them to make culture your edge in your team, in your organization, in your family.
Well, welcome back to the SightShift podcast. So good to have you along with us for another episode. He's Chris. I'm Mark. And today's episode is going to be pretty fun.
A little different from the last series.
A little different. We're going to talk about a previous episode that just came out. We're going to do a little bit of look back on 25 as we land the plane on 25 and then take off onto 26. And as I mentioned ahead of time, I got a couple notes, couple thoughts, questions, but we're going to let this one kind of play out as it plays out today. So I wanted to start with the episode that just was released, kind of a coming out, if you will, telling
All my buddies from college, they got jokes now.
telling the fuller story of SightShift, the origins, and really what we're currently leaning more heavier into. As I was listening to that episode, I had a couple questions. I had a couple observations. Let me start with a question to help the audience get into the thinking. What was the reasoning for that episode? Like why that one? Of all the things that we could be talking about, why that one?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to set up the context. And, I honestly, when something is as personal as that episode was, there's going to be a thing in me that's just going to say, I'm going to go light on context, and then I'll trust your guidance if I should go into more, and I'm happy to. I'm not trying to avoid anything. But yeah, for me, when I was 3 years old, I'm kidding.
That's the light version.
Yeah, there is. I really could take it back that far in the craziest way ever, but I won't. I made a decision I can drive by the Starbucks where I named SightShift, right? And we kind of moved to an area of town now where we drive by it more. And I was with Brandy in the car. I was like, I named SightShift there, you know? So that was 2012 when we formed the organization. 2015, I went into it full time. And I made a decision, and it was a decision that I felt like I was guided into. And it was a very, very visceral experience that SightShift was going to just be for leaders. And what that meant was I was going to have to really distance myself from part of my biography, or the story wouldn't make sense. And so I made the focus on the real estate company and then what failed, and that was the story that I told, so that I could go anywhere and help people that way.
Yeah.
So what changed, and I've kind of like wrestled with it the last few years, like is now the right time? Should I do this? Should I not? You really, when you're trying to make a decision like that, you're trying not to overthink it. You want to receive an insight, then provide analysis. You don't usually analyze your way into your best decision. So I've been kind of waiting for a moment to show up that, like, this is the time, not knowing exactly what it would look like. And that moment really showed up when we were in a leadership team setting. And one of our team, who is not of the same conviction, still an amazing human, was like, this is what's right for SightShift to do next. I don't even know if you remember this, but I was standing. I remember it was a longer meeting, so I was up walking around, and I was standing at the edge of the table here, and I was like, this is the moment that it's happening. Like, this is happening. And then for me personally, the way I would process through that, there was just a lot more affirmation. So we decided we would do a coming out story, own that biography, and invited a friend who is of similar conviction in what it means to be a good human, but still very different in his own worldview and thinking.
That came out in the conversation,
episode, yeah.
in a good way.
And so Daniel was so gracious to do that, and then now that episode is live and the biography is out there. And for some people, they're going to be like, "Yeah, I already knew it."
Yeah.
Oh, I can totally see it.
Yep.
I kind of knew it. Or what?
Yeah.
That's weird. What does that mean? And hopefully we'll get into some of that today, what it does and doesn't mean, because we didn't get into that as much in that episode.
Yeah, yeah. The question that I wanted to follow that up with is this. As you were recording that episode for Daniel, or with Daniel for everyone, what was it like for you to be in that moment, in that conversation, having the fuller picture revealed?
Yeah, well, truthfully, I knew that I didn't want to have in my head maybe the 30% of people who might feel bothered, let down, confused by this. Or I would have tried to bring everybody along too much. And I want to take everybody with us that we can. I don't want to unnecessarily lose anybody from this. More importantly, I wouldn't want anybody to be hurt or confused. But I just really tried to, like, I'm sitting here just talking with Daniel. And so that for me was the main, like, frame. And I think after it happened, when you participate in a moment like that, you don't always know how things come across. Mm-hmm. And so Brett, trust him so much. And he was like, I got chills. And I was like, oh, there was something real and authentic that happened in a beautiful way. Because there were things that I said in that interview, that podcast, that I would have never imagined I would have. I mean, it wasn't like I had notes with that on it, and I was like, I need to make these points. It did. It drew out that moment in a real authentic way.
I experienced that that authenticity listening. Obviously, you and I, when the camera's off and the microphones are off, we're having some pretty deep, intimate, authentic, vulnerable conversations, the two of us, just how we operate, which I love it. It's one of the things I love about you and this environment. I think the listeners, the viewers, got to see more of that with you in that episode. And I was seeing that, experiencing that coming through, like, oh yeah, that's consistent with the Chris that I get to see every day, all day in the work we do together, which I thought was really cool.
That's encouraging, and it makes me think of, so the first coming out was at an event in Orlando in September, I think was when we were there for the Make Culture Your Edge tour. And I actually opened the event in a way that I've never opened. And I did tell part of the story, kind of like why is this passion for healthy culture and healthy leadership there and so deep and so meaningful to me? The fun way I've been talking about it is like Bane. He was born in the darkness. He's not afraid of the darkness. I feel like my story was born out of the darkness. And so I went into more detail around it and owning that biography. And actually a CEO who was there came up afterward, who I had personally coached. And he was like everything, it means even more now. It makes even more sense. And he obviously went through enough transformation that we ended up working with their company. And so it wasn't like there was a loss of quality, but it just filled in details that made the whole story make more sense. And so that was like really cool to hear that. Because if people can learn through this more how to be secure in their identity, clear in their mission, and build healthy community and culture, they're going to lead for impact more than validation. That's the purpose. That's the win. Now we can't be completely strategic about it in the sense that, and I said this in the podcast, this could end us. And I don't say that flippantly. I would be heartbroken. But I know it's the right thing to do.
Yeah. It's planting a flag.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And I think the thing that is important to emphasize is like, it wasn't like a thing of like, oh, I can't plant this flag because these bad things might happen. It was much more informed by a lack of peace to plant this flag. Now isn't the right time. Even though I wanted to, especially the last few years, like, I'll do this. If we're supposed to do this, I'll do this. But this was just different. And so there's no like, opportunistic strategizing. I'm wired up in a way, and this is going to shock Mark. I can get too far ahead of the moment where I'm kind of speed reading lips on what's going to happen. And of course, anybody that knows me is like, what? So I think for me, anytime I feel a constraint on something or a piece to wait, it's a real strong signal to pay attention to. And that got released. That got released. So here we are.
Yeah, that's cool. My mind is going in a bunch of different ways, but I think maybe this thought interjected here can keep us moving. You know more of my story than most of the listeners do. We have a shared faith and a shared commitment to the work that we're doing here. But you said something in that episode that was a aha moment for me. And I'm like, man, I really like that. Because Daniel was teasing out, where is this content coming from? And you're like, well, it's in the ancient scriptures. It's in the ancient stories. It's this ancient wisdom. That's part of how we've been messaging the foundation for all of this. And I don't remember the exact wording, but you said effectively this. It's not part of what we're doing because it's in the Bible. It's part of what we're doing because it's true and it works and it's captured within the pages of that ancient holy text.
Yeah.
That stood out to me in a number of ways, including just a further insight into how you think, how you approach. It works. And it's in the Bible, not just it's in the Bible, therefore.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, and this is a huge thing that I don't think enough people think about because, and we're in the deep end of it. So it's not like God could say this. You should care about the book of Job. You should care about the book of Job. You should care about the book of Job. So the book of Job, probably one of the most ancient writings that we have. It's not that like this edict comes from on high and now everybody cares about the book of Job for thousands of years. It would never work that way. You think about like how quick things leave our attention, right? For something to hold sway for thousands of years. And it is why, I put in the Figure That Shift Out book originally the story of Adam and Eve, because that is the number one story, like that has captured people's imagination for thousands of years. And it tells us everything we need to know about leadership and the quest to be shame-free. And rescues us from all the therapeutic ditches things live in now. See, I can keep going on any of it. I'll stop there. But no, Job captured people's imagination, and it would have been around the fire. And the grandfather's talking to the grandson, and the grandson's disheartened because that story is all about loss and grief and when things don't match up and I'm doing the right things, but bad things happen. And the grandson has lost heart. And the grandfather then says, let me tell you a story. And most of it is in poetry. So it would have been memorized. It was an oral history before it was a written history. And so that story, Jonah, it's a 4-part poem. These stories held sway for thousands of years. And I think that's what's so powerful. It works. It held people's imagination. It transforms them. Micah 6:8, Luke 3-5, 1 Corinthians 13, all of these places that we base, all of our key content on, it works. Now, people may or may not have a conviction about the source of why it works. And I'm okay interacting with people at a very pragmatic level. Like, just give me what works.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because the top 10, and I think I referenced this in the podcast, the top 10 leadership or psychological studies that have affected leadership literature the most, 7.5 of them have been debunked. Things we invent as novelties and fads don't hold sway.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking more at, what's that long arc?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at all the trouble people have with sleep now. And there's all these protocols for sleep. Why? Because we haven't even evolved for electricity. I mean, electricity is still new. If you look at, depending on your take on things, hundreds of thousands of years or 6,000 or 8,000 years, electricity is still new to our nervous system. So they're not as dumb as we think, and we're not as smart as we think.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to weave a couple of thoughts together here. One, I like how you've said just now and in other conversations we've been in, if you look at the qualities of love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, a specific list known as fruit of the Spirit. But if you look at those qualities and characteristics, you cannot argue that we are worse off with more of them. The argument is the other way around.
Yeah.
We are better off with more love and more joy and more peace. You said it just a minute ago. Whether you have a conviction about the source, the created order behind all that or not, it's hard to argue that more love, more joy, more peace doesn't produce more of the good things of our lives. Sometimes I language it as it's an operating system with which we can cooperate and experience better. That's one thread. The other thread is this. I think what you just demonstrated, a lot of times people don't get unless they're working directly with you or with us. And like, those are some of the most fun experiences we have, right? When we can go all the way deep to the bedrock with coaching clients or companies that we're serving, leadership teams that we're serving. Most people don't get to experience what you just gave them. And what we hear over and over and over is nobody's saying that. Nobody's talking like that. Nobody is doing what you are doing. And I think you just gave listeners, viewers, a glimpse into what happens when you're unleashed, when we can be at our fullest. And the feedback that we continually get is nobody's doing that. Nobody's talking about it like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why it makes me sad, because if you look at the extremes, on both extremes in ideas, extreme left, extreme right, here's what you should care about. Here's what you should care about. We don't tell you what to care about. We're just saying, like, can you imagine something better? Like you just listed out the fruits of the Spirit. Like, that's why in that context, Paul says, against such things there is no law. He was saying there's no better list we can imagine that we would all live by. Because if we all lived by this, we wouldn't need law and order.
Right.
Now, we need law and order because plenty of people are not going to live by that. There's always going to be a percentage of evil, just outright evil. But the more insidious form that we see is when a leader is insecure and they skip over the character formation and then they're not living out the love and the joy and the peace. They are creating a context that is not the culture they want, even regardless of whatever their worldview is. So we're not telling you what to care about. If you care about developing leaders who develop other leaders, if you care about not trying to like fix everything, but just find the one leadership mistake you make under pressure when you're insecure, if you care about leading for impact, not your own validation. If you care about building a healthy culture and community, man, do we have resources, knowledge, training, data, because it all comes out of that, you know. So we don't always connect the dots, and we won't always connect the dots. We'll serve where we're serving and meet people where they are, but underneath the hood of it all, what's powering this, we're really measuring where the fruits of the Spirit are being cultivated in you, and you can choose the insecure path or you can choose the secure path.
Yeah.
And we live in a world right now where we have more access to different ideologies and worldviews than ever before. I mean, because most of human history, you grew up, you had your worldview, and that was it. Maybe somebody traveled through that offered a different worldview. And now you can have some amalgamation of, 100 things that create this one custom little cult you're a part of. And people, we know it, we see it. People need leaders who lead for impact, not validation.
I've heard you use that phrase for years now. I've heard you use a bunch of other phrases. As I was listening to the episode, I had this question surfaced for me. Obviously, it's been a number of years, a decade plus, that you've been steeped in this content and to where it is today. I wonder today if you've got language and wording to be able to specifically articulate it in a way that you didn't back then when it was forming and coalescing. That may just be a selfish curiosity question, but it surfaced as I was listening to that conversation with Daniel.
Interesting. I think I would go at it a different way, more than I would say I have a different way of wording it. I would say right from the beginning, I had a less toned down way of wording it. So if I gave it its deepest wording, and this was never part of the plan today, so I mean no harm. There's two kind of like key principles that philosophically for me everything flows out of. One is this. Regardless of how you think about higher power, and I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to avoid anything with that. I'm just trying to start this in the biggest, most open, invitational way possible. If I can imagine a higher power more secure in their identity than the one you're telling me about, you're so far off the mark. So really, I mean, I believe that the deepest idea that shifted everything for me in 2008, that I'm still not over, it still drives everything. There's no being more secure in identity than God. God is perfectly secure in God's identity. So that is the model of existence and reality for us. And everything that the fruits of the Spirit would do would color in that picture, because however far you can imagine it is just the limits of your imagination. It's not the limits of reality. That's an endless path to go down, forever, fully ready to be discovered. The fullness of love, the fullness of joy, the fullness of peace, and we barely scratch at that. So that's enough. But there's another piece to that, and it's this. We were created, designed for a perfectly secure attachment to that secure identity. Which brings in the story of Jesus as our example, and the Holy Spirit is our empowerment. And so that's everything. So everything that's happening in your life could be understood through the filter of where you're trying to get a secure identity through your mission, what you do, through your community, your relationships. And when those don't go like you want it to, or someone violates you in either of those, and injustice occurs. You get angry about what's happening with Somalians in Minnesota, and you're like, I don't have health insurance, and look at what's happening to them. You are taking mission pain and community pain and making it identity pain. And it was never meant to be that way. Now, I still do that because I'm an imperfect human in process and in motion. But like, if you can lock in on those two ideas are shaping, I think, all of reality, everything else. And this is what I wrote a dissertation on. So a lot of people don't know this. I don't even think we talked about this in the podcast, that I went all the way through educationally in the ministry world, which we'll probably get into. And so I completed an MDiv, and I have a Doctor of Ministry degree, which is applied research. And this was the research that I did. What's the process for how someone fully aligns with these two ideas? So, yeah. So more than it's a new way to say it, thus the spirit of the podcast with Daniel, the returning, if you will, or the coming out with the full story it's all coming out of those two pieces.
Yeah, it's good. Again, another example of what's behind the scenes.
Yeah,
that most people don't get to experience. I know in the conversation today we want to get also to a bit of a look back on 2025 and a bit of a look back on 2026. But before we move off of the coming out episode, any other thoughts? Anything stand out, or a place that you wanted to go in our conversation today that we haven't gone yet?
I mean, two occur to me now to speak to two people. One is, what does this mean for me? If I don't connect with that worldview, what does this mean for me? And it's so powerful to just grasp this reality. I don't think that's how the story unfolds for people. That you have to swallow things you're not ready for. I would say just start with where your curiosity is. Try things on. Can you find a better way to lead in the moment when you're insecure and build other leaders and move a culture and transform it and shift it? Can you find a better way? I mean, we get as practical as these are the three pieces to put together a vision. These are the three pieces to walk through change. These are the three pieces that connect, and it's all based on ancient wisdom. If you can find a better way, do it. But engage us with curiosity. Try it out. Just try it out. You don't have to have the whole meal to say, I like this bite. Enjoy it as it is. And give us the opportunity to have a conversation with you, because we do not force this conversation, and we do not force this conversation on organizations. There's plenty of organizations where the business owner may be aligned with us in worldview, but we don't have the larger conversation with the company.
Correct.
Because that does violence to people. And that would allow me to speak to the second group. I think there are people who can be excited about this and cheer us on. Hopefully, that'd be great. But I think there are some who think we're not really doing our part, or maybe they hope we would live in this spot of, we're going to put our finger in your face, and let's give them what's for. And that is never this isn't cowardice. This is ancient wisdom informed. I want to word it stronger. This is theologically and biblically informed. They will know the quality of our worldview, the philosophical brilliance of it, not by our arguments, but how we live transformed, how we live as one. And so, in speaking to that second group, don't get caught up in the ideological wars and like, yeah, my side's going to win and I got one. And, let's just live transformed. And yes, there's a time and place to speak directly and connect dots and align around truth. And I pulled no punches in the interview with Daniel on that. There was a moment I remember where he asked, and I could have been like, I could have soft pedaled it, and I wasn't tempted to. I don't want to, because I know it's transformed me. But I also would say to that group, like, if you're cheering for us to plant a flag in such a way that we're trying to fight a culture war, this is not the culture war of our fathers, where it's going to be shaped by some kind of virtue signaling around moral purity. It's how we live transformed.
Well said. That would be enough of an episode up to that point, just to cut it off there. But well said. Again, you've got my mind going in a bunch of different directions, but maybe let's shift off of that.
I could do it all day.
Yeah, I know, and I enjoy it. We have fun. The segue that's occurring to me is roll back conversation a couple minutes. You were talking about how can you stand in the midst of the relational pain or the missional pain, whether circumstantially imposed or as a result of choices that didn't work out, whatever. There's a pain. There's a pain in a relationship. There's a pain in a mission. How can you stand in that with peace, with conviction, with security? You and I both look back on this calendar year and are like, man, that was hard in lots of different ways. But one of the things that I know about you, and that we are both growing in ourselves, is that we can stand in the midst of that and have this confidence that I'm good, I'm okay. Mm-hmm. And it is going to be okay, rather than getting swept up in the circumstances or overwhelmed by whatever the pain is. We don't have to take it on as identity pain. Trying to kind of color in to some extent what 2025 has been for both of us personally as well as professionally. But I know there are some highlights to call out, even in the midst of the challenge that 25 has been. So bringing that full circle, as you look back on the last 11 months, from the wins to capture, those additional moments like you were talking about with, this is where we're gonna go. The time is right. What are the highlights as you think about 2025 that stand out for you, even knowing that it's been, in many ways, it's been a really, really hard year?
Yeah. And I love it. And just for context, as people are listening, we had an incredible year, 2024, and some plans just didn't work like we thought they would in 2025. Of course, hindsight is the best foresight. So you can look back and go, I totally see why they didn't work. And I do go through those seasons, because if you've led for any amount of time, you know that you go through these are normal. They happen all the time, where the plan just kind of breaks.
Yeah.
And when the plan breaks in my life, I'm asking myself this question, and I have deeper ways of saying it, but like, what's this circumstance trying to wake me up to? What's it asking for? I think the language I used with us as a team is like, what's the business asking for right now? And by far, for sure, the two biggest pieces for me, easy to go into. One is to see the way that as a leadership team, you guys have, like, this has captured your imagination in such a way that it's if you filled SightShift with all of who you are, and it was a 10-ounce cup in 2024, even in the challenge, you've filled it like a 12-ounce cup or a 16-ounce cup. And so, I mean, I think about that a lot. I don't tell you guys enough, but like, I see the way that you've leaned into the moment. The second thing would be the learning. Like, and this is always going to be the case, but Make Culture Your Edge book came out, and we could put another 100 pages on it. Now I'm glad we can't, because that's kind of our vibe to write the shorter books. But it's going to be incredible for next year, because we've gotten I mean, I've been doing the culture content actively for like 6 years. And it just, I mean, encouraging people that are out there trying to do something. It doesn't happen overnight. If it
takes a while.
does, you got lucky and you may not know.
Yeah.
But so it's the reps that we've gotten that I can now go to a team. We don't need a day and a quarter. Give us 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get everybody on the same page. We'll know the key changes that need to be made and how that deepens the relationships. And so it is our own challenges and pain that allow us to deliver at a higher level, more value, simpler, and message it better too, because that's a key part of it. So I could go into a ton of detail on that, but ultimately what we are going to be announcing, that I don't want to steal the thunder on it, first quarter next year. I mean, I'm chomping at the bit to share it with you guys now.
Yeah.
But I'm going to hold off.
And that's another announcement that's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be it.
We were given a governor by the by the marketing director, like don't do it. Don't do it. So we're holding back. But I think if I were to look back and answer that same question, I think that would be an alignment. I would categorize it as a product innovation.
Yeah.
That there's more coming on. I think we have upgraded systems and structures through this, and I think we're also learning that we can improve and get better, simpler, tighter in the messaging too. I know those may seem kind of ambiguous or general, but if we look at the results of what we've been through in 2025 and say, as a result of the challenge, we've been able to upgrade and grow and improve here. Those would be the three things that stand out to me.
I love that. And I would say, there's another piece to this, and that is, don't judge us by our results. That's a part of it. Judge us by the results of the people we serve.
Yeah.
Why do they come back for more?
Yeah.
Why are they growing?
Yeah.
Why are they getting acquired? Because it works.
Because it works.
It works.
Because it's ancient wisdom.
Yeah.
And I like to use the phrase timeless and timely at the same time.
One of my, he's become a good friend. We worked with him for a number of years. And they just had a really successful exit. And early on, years ago, I forget what question he asked me that I answered it this way, but it was right at the beginning of the relationship. And I was like, because I want you to know this is what we aim for, that you're going to be with your friends and tell them about us, and you're going to say, it works. That's what I want. If we do that, everything else is good.
Yeah.
And that's because it's ancient wisdom.
Yeah, right on. Right on. So as we think then rolling into the new year, obviously we have plans and strategies. We've teased something that's coming. You're going to hear more about that in the next coming weeks. What are you most excited for as you think about where we want to go, the things we want to accomplish, the plans, the results, the outcomes that we want to see for 26? What most excites you?
Two pieces. One is to have more conversations like this, right? To go in places and be able to go full tilt on it, swing for the fences. And we're hoping doors like that will open. Second would be that we become known for one thing next year. And I can't tell you what it is. But we will.
Yeah.
That would be it.
Yeah, that's cool. One of the other things that wanted to draw out in this conversation is, as we're taking a further step into signaling really that where the ancient wisdom is coming from behind all this content, and you'll hear more about this in the coming weeks and months as well. We have a nonprofit that is called 15 And. You can talk about that meaning in a second, because again, it's a unique name. But whereas SightShift has been in the marketplace for businesses and business marketplace leaders, 15 And is going to stand in the gap for the same type of work, but for churches and nonprofits. And we've been putting the pieces in place and the content there so that it is ready. And in the coming days, you'll hear more about 15 and. But I'm excited in that standpoint, because the interplay and the intersection is even tighter now as we message who SightShift is for the faith-driven leader. But then there's a 15 and there's a component that allows us to be able to serve churches and nonprofits through our own nonprofit called 15 and.
Yeah, I mean, I love the way you say it. It's plain glass, stained glass, and so and I think about that when I say the first thing, that message going full tilt. That's a piece of that, and so 15 and is just this idea that there were 12 disciples and there was a 13th and a 14th, and nobody knows who 15 was, right? 15 and maybe you're number 2,272,368th, and we're a part of this legacy, and we're also seeing what new wineskins need to be built for today. And what a fun joy that we've been able to put that in place and serve and take care of people whenever we formed it 18 months ago. And we've been doing it behind the scenes.
That's right.
We haven't told anybody about it.
That's
We're
right.
going to be telling you about it as all this starts to come out. And so here we go.
Here we go.
See what happens.
Yeah, exciting. I don't think in our podcast conversations we've done an episode quite like this. So this has been fun. Any last thoughts or any place that you wanted to go to today that we didn't go to yet?
I would just say this. If you're disoriented or disturbed at all by today, and it takes you to a place of curiosity, awesome. If you're disoriented and disturbed by today, and it takes you to a place of hardening what you already think that may have nothing to do with us, it may be you. On the other side of it, if you are running for the hills, ready to shoot everybody down with all your arguments, that's not us. That may be you.
Yeah. Full tilt.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, super fun.
Yes. Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Happy New Year. Rolling right into 26. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for being on this journey with us, for taking in another episode. If you have comments, questions, thoughts, attaboy, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? You can always hit us up. You can reach out to us. You can find us on the web at SightShift, SightShift.com, and engage with us more there. We'd love to hear from you. Again, wishing you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you again in 26.
And if it's really negative, put it in the YouTube comments so the YouTube video will get lots of views. Peace out, everybody.
Here we go.
Thanks so much for being with us on the SightShift podcast. I hope in some way we've encouraged you to face, lean into, and become aware of the moments that represent so much transformation possibility. If you want more, you can always go to SightShift, SightShift.com, and learn to make culture your edge.